Welcome back. All right, by popular demand, let us discuss the Washington Capitals. Now, in the event that they start losing games after I've made this video, I do apologize. But again, people are like, hey, talk about the Caps. All right, we will talk about the Caps. This season, an absolutely amazing run, and especially notable is how well they've played without Ovechkin. Now, Ovechkin's trending towards a return. It could happen, I would say, maybe next weekend. At some point soon, we're going to see Ovechkin back in the lineup, and we'll see what kind of effect this has on the team. Currently, they're 21-6-2. 44 points. It's remarkable. But I wanted to compare it to previous seasons. So last year, through 29 games, 16-9-4 record, 36 points. So they're 8 points ahead of where they were last season through 29 games, a year where they missed out in the first round. They lost. 2022-2023, a 13-12-4 record for 30 points. They missed the playoffs that season. So 14 points ahead of that season. 2021-2022, comparable in points, 17-5-7 record, but there are 7 extra time points in there, right? Overtime losses, shootout losses. So yes, 41 points, but this season's team has been far more impressive. Of course, 2022 they lost in the first round. 2020-2021 they started 19-6-4, so 42 points, only 2 points off where they are right now, and they lost in the first round that year as well. 2019-2020 very similar to this year, 24-5 record, 45 points. They lost in the first round in 2020, of course. 2018-2019, 17-9-3 record for 37 points. So 7 points behind where they are this season, and they were out in the first round. 2017-2018, looking back that far, 17-11-1 record, 35 points, and they won the Stanley Cup. And it is noteworthy that that is one of the lowest numbers on the board, and yet they won the Cup that year. 2016 and 2017, the Washington Capitals won the President's Trophy. It didn't do them any good in the playoffs. 2010, they won the President's Trophy. It didn't do them any good in the playoffs. So, while Washington right now looks like they could cruise to the President's Trophy, traditionally for the Capitals, it hasn't been good news. When I was, going over the whole President's Trophy curse thing, I pointed out that between Washington and Boston, they're a lot of the curse, where they finished first overall and they're not going to win. So at some point in time, I do expect Washington to go through some sort of struggle. I don't know if they end up first overall, but that will be the narrative going into the playoffs if they end up being first overall. It's going to be, okay, they won the President's Trophy. Again, are they going to end up losing early on in the playoffs as they've done when they've won the President's Trophy previously? Now, looking at their scorers, Dylan Strome, 29 games, 10 goals, 27 assists, 37 points. Since Ovechkin got hurt, 11 games, 4 goals, 5 assists, 9 points. And it is possible that when you're picking a Team Canada, you leave Dylan Strome off thinking he gets a lot of points playing with Ovechkin. Obviously, Ovechkin's not playing on our team. Maybe that's part of it. Connor McMichael, 29 games, 15 goals, 12 assists, 27 points overall. Since Ovechkin's injury, 11 games, 3 goals, 5 assists, 8 points. Alexi Protas, 29 games, 11 goals, 15 assists, 26 points. Since the injury, 11 games, 4 goals, 4 assists, 8 points. The injured player Ovechkin, fourth on the list, 18 games, 15 goals, 10 assists, 25 points. And of course, he hasn't played the last 11. Wilson, 29 games, 13 goals, 11 assists, 24 points. He's the one player who's been playing better since the injury. 11 games, 7 goals, 4 assists, 11 points. And I mean in terms of scoring. I don't mean the overall play. Just in terms of scoring, Wilson seems to be filling that void. He is the number one goal scorer on the team since Ovechkin got hurt, which is interesting because McMichael and Ovechkin are tied for the team lead with 15 goals. But McMichael's goals per game track pace, there you go, there's the words like word, pace, has slowed since the Ovechkin injury, which makes sense because now he's one of the primary guys. And so instead of checking Ovechkin, you might have that extra oomph against McMichael you might not otherwise have had. John Carlson, 29 games, 3 goals, 20 assists, 23 points. Since the injury, 11 games, 1 goal, 8 assists, 9 points. Dubois seems to be excelling in Washington as more of a secondary player than I think he was being counted on to be in Winnipeg or in LA. And I don't feel like his contract's come up this year either. So 29 games, 4 goals, 17 assists, 21 points. Since the injury to Ovechkin, 11 games, 3 goals, 6 assists, 9 points. That's very respectable. Jacob Chychrun, 24 games altogether, 9 goals, 11 assists, 20 points. Since the injury to Ovechkin, 11 games, 4 goals, 8 assists, 12 points. So Chychrun's played quite well since the injury as well, and is making an argument, I would say, for not necessarily Norris consideration, but somewhere out on the outskirts. Maybe somebody decides to write him in as a 5th place selection, that kind of thing. We'll see if Chychrun can keep this up. If he keeps playing the way he has been, he could get into that conversation. Sandin, 29 games, 4 goals, 9 assists, 13 points overall. Since the Ovechkin injury, 11 games, 1 goal, 2 assists, 3 points. So he's fallen off scoring-wise over the last 11. Radish, 29 games, 4 goals, 9 assists, 13 points overall. Since the injury, 11 games, 1 goal, 4 assists, 5 points. Interestingly enough, the goaltending numbers are very similar to what they were before the injury, too. So Thompson, 12-1-2 overall, 913 save percentage during the time without Ovechkin, 4-1-1 with a 912 save percentage. Very similar numbers. Charlie Lindgren, 9-5 overall with a 901 save percentage. Since the injury, 4-1 with a 908 save percentage. So we look at the team numbers, and you see without Ovechkin, they're doing pretty well. 8-2-1. But what's interesting is they're scoring at a rate of 3.36 goals per game. At the time of the Ovi injury, it was over 4. So they have definitely seen their scoring drop, but their goals against has come down as well. They're 2.45 goals against per game over the last 11. So essentially, Ovechkin gets hurt, and either Carberry changed up some systems or the players just changed the way they were playing, understanding they got to be more defensively responsible. But their special teams, their power play's been excellent, 32.4%. Their penalty kill, 77.8%. You're going to want to improve that. But as you can see from the fact they're only allowing 2.45 goals against per game, it hasn't really hurt them having a penalty kill that's below the 80% mark. Their shots, they're shooting 32.2 shots per game in the time without Ovechkin, and they're allowing 26.4 shots against per game. So they're controlling the game. They're keeping scoring chances against them down. And I think Charlie Lindgren's play has turned around after a slow start. So things are really going quite well for the Washington Capitals from top to bottom. What's interesting is, and looking at the last 11 games in particular, they've been outscored in the first period 10-7. They've been outscored in the second period 11-9. In the third period, they have outscored their opposition 19-5. So they keep it close through the first and second. Maybe they're trailing, and then third period, they just go out there and do what they got to do. And in overtime, they've outscored the opposition 2-1. So Washington finding those goals late between third and overtime, outscoring the opposition 21-6. It is very impressive, and it tells you this is a team that's very well coached, and they're not overly bothered if they're losing or if it's tied after the first or second period. They're fine with that. So Capitals doing a really good job of locking it down defensively and playing their most important and best minutes in the third period and beyond. Now, their upcoming schedule is not that daunting, although tomorrow, Monday, they are in Dallas. Dallas is really tough at home. But they did lose recently at home against Nashville, so it's not like it's an impenetrable wall there or anything. Then on Tuesday, they're in Chicago. As long as they don't take Chicago lightly, and they shouldn't. They're 8-2-1 in their last 11 because they're not taking teams lightly. Maybe they win both of those back-to-backs, but it's going to be tough. Then they come home on Friday to play against Carolina. Carolina's had its struggles. The Capitals definitely playing better hockey right now than Carolina. We'll see if that holds true in that game on Friday. Then on Sunday the 22nd, they're at home against the Kings. Kings have been playing very, very well. Then they're away on Monday the 23rd in Boston. So to round things out before Christmas, they have a home game against LA, and then the next night they're in Boston. That's not easy. It's not an easy turnaround, but this is a team that has done pretty darn well recently, even on short turnarounds. Then after the Christmas break on the 28th, so they have 5 days between games. They're in Toronto on Saturday the 28th. Then they're in Detroit the next night on the 29th. So you've got back-to-back, back-to-back, back-to-back. And that's something that good conditioning, good coaching, and all that fun stuff should be able to work with. Then they're at home on Tuesday the 31st to round out December, and it's another game against Boston. So they have 2 games against Boston before the end of the month, but they're playing really well. 8 of 14 next month are on the road, and then 6 out of 8 in February are at home. So, and I'd put up their home and road records, but it doesn't really make a big difference. They're very good at home. They're very good on the road. And they're very good against basically almost everybody this year. The Washington Capitals are a bit of a wagon at this point. Do they stay there? That's the big question mark. And they're doing this without Backstrom, who barely played last year either, but his career probably at this point, done. And then you've got Oshie, who's taking the year off. His career is up in the air as well. Milano is currently on LTIR with the other two. Milano probably comes back to play this season. We'll see. Ovechkin's just on IR. He's not on LTIR, so at any point in time, they can just activate him, right? And he's been out long enough that if they put him on LTIR, because it's been over 10 games, they could just pull him off LTIR as well. They have lots of cap space next summer. One thing to keep in mind with the Capitals is that while they're in salary cap hell this year, for sure, yes, absolutely, a lot of money on LTIR. They're not accruing the cap space necessarily, but and while I think they have 1.6 million currently in cap space, what do they need to add? They've got good depth up front. They've got good depth on the blue line. Their goaltending's really pretty darn good. And they're going to get Ovechkin back probably in the next week, which is a really nice addition to have. So I'm not sure what the team would necessarily need. I think they're in a good spot going into the trade deadline, where you might add a depth forward, a depth defenseman, and just be done with it. Because that seems to be the way of things. Teams that feel they're contenders will add depth, and you don't really need major surgery on this roster. You just need to make sure guys stay healthy and productive. And so when Ovechkin comes back in, you're going to hope that doesn't mess with some of the line's chemistry. Spencer Carberry deserves a lot of credit. He's in year 2 as coach. This was a team that I felt was headed for a rebuild and probably needed a rebuild. And here we are now into year 2 under his leadership, and the team doesn't need a rebuild at all, and they look like a contender. So I guess the question I have for people is, do you view this team as a contender? If not, why not? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I do. I think this team can. I think there are a lot of teams right now in the NHL you can make that argument for, and Washington's one of them. So let me know your thoughts. Hit like and subscribe in the event you may not have done so already. Thank you guys so much for all your support as always. I will talk to you again soon.